Hey guys, I'm Wes Carr, and for this video lesson we're going to be talking about how to play bluegrass guitar rhythm. The first thing that you want to do is understand what the role of the guitar is in a bluegrass band. And in a lot of ways, we are the glue that's holding everything together. We have the notes that are on the beat, that are just like the double bass. We also have the notes that are off the beat, that are going to be kind of resembling the mandolin or the fiddle and sometimes the banjo. So what you basically get out of the guitar is when it's playing rhythmically, it's doing the role of the entire bluegrass band to some extent. So it's important that first and foremost, when you practice these things, you're always practicing with the metronome, so you're able to lock into that rhythm, because you need to be able to kind of connect with every member of the band when it comes to playing rhythm in a bluegrass setting. So first of all, we're going to start and we're going to basically be hitting the key of G, since a lot of bluegrass music kind of focuses around that key. So we want to know kind of what the most common chords that we're going to be dealing with are. And in bluegrass music, we tend to use a system, a group of chords that we refer to as 1, 4, and 5. So what that means is that you take a scale and you build chords on the first, fourth, and fifth notes of that scale. So in the key of G, your first chord would be the G chord. Your second chord would be the C chord. And your last chord in the progression would be a D chord. Right, so that's 1, 4, and 5 there. Now, from there, what kind of separates bluegrass rhythm apart is our strumming pattern. We don't typically, we won't always strum the way that your average guitarist will strum. We use a rhythm called the boom chuck. So we're actually separating the rhythms. So we're separating what's on the beat and what's off the beat. So if you're thinking eighth notes, that first note is the 1, the second note is the and. So the other half of the beat, essentially. And from there, what you need to understand is that the guitar can be seen as being separated into two sections. The first 3 strings, E, A, and D, are your bass strings. The bottom 3 strings, G, B, and E, are your treble strings. So when we're playing, we're breaking the bass strings away from the treble strings. So it's going to be important that you know what notes you're able to hit for those bass hits on the boom chuck pattern. Obviously, we're going to want to, if we're kind of trying to emulate the bass with those booms, we're going to want to stick to those 3 strings, the top 3 strings on the guitar, that we view as our bass strings, right? So you always will be playing for that first, for all the notes that are on the beat, you'll be playing 1 string out of your bass strings, and then following that with the bottom 3 strings on the offbeat. To understand what strings you're able to play, we're going to use a little bit more theory here. You have 3 notes in every basic chord. If we go back to the scale, you're going to be taking the first, the third, and the fifth notes of the scale to build the chord. So if we're looking at the G chord, we're going to be taking our first, which is the G, our third, which is the B, and our fifth, which is the D. So if we're doing the boom chuck, what we want to do is we want to start by just playing G. So that's going to be that top string there. So you're going to play a G, and you're going to strum your bottom 3 strings. As you get more comfortable, you can start to alternate between 1 and 3, which would be G and B. So that would be your top string and your second to top string. Or 1 and 5, which would be your top string and then your open D string. as we look at the C chord, we're going to follow that same idea. So we're going to still be building off of the 1, the 3, and the 5 to build the chord in C. So what we want to do is we want to start on our C note, which is the lowest note in your standard C chord, so the 3rd fret of the A string. And just like we did with the G chord, we're going to start by playing C and then strumming the bottom 3 strings. If we want to do the 3rd, we'll play the D string, which we have our middle finger on the 2nd fret for the C chord. And we're going to be playing the D string and again the bottom 3 strings. So we're going to alternate between 1 and 3. Now if we want to do the 5th, which in the C chord is G, we start to run into a problem. The G, our open G string, or the G in the C chord, is actually in our treble strings, which we want to avoid. So what we do instead is we go to the same G that we used on the G chord, the 3rd fret of the E string. So you can either alternate with your middle finger, or you can set it up to where your ring finger is now holding up the 3rd fret of the E, and your pinky is the 3rd fret of the A. Okay, let's take a look at our D chord now, which is our 5th chord in the key of G. So our first note will obviously be the D, which is going to be our open D string, which is the 3rd string down. So you would play that, strum the bottom 3, now when we get to the 3rd of the D chord, which is an F sharp, we start to run into some trouble. Since the F sharp is on the same string as the open D was. And that would be a lot of work to demand from your pinky. The other issue is that the F sharp an octave down is on the 2nd fret of the E string, and you can hear how that's a pretty drastic harmonic movement. It sounds kind of awkward, right? So unless we're making a transition to the G chord, we don't spend a lot of time using the 3rd in the D. Those transitions are going to be another video for another day. But so for the most part, what we're going to be focusing on is going to be the 1st and the 5th. So our 5th in the D chord is our A string, just an open A, nice and easy. So there's a lot that you can do with this, and you're not going to be limited to only playing 1 and 3 or 1 and 5. Obviously, you can play around and see what works well. There's a lot of different options and a lot of different things that you can do by mixing them apart. Always try to remember to think of the guitar as serving 2 purposes. You have your bass in the low end, the mandolin, fiddle, things kind of up in the high end on your offbeats. So what you really want to make sure that you're doing is with your bass notes, you want them to sound reasonable. You want them to sound like they work and that they connect. It helps to create the impression of a second guitar being played, and it also helps the listener kind of follow what you're trying to do. Again, please practice with a metronome. I think all of us bluegrass players, we have a tendency to spend way too much time working on our lead stuff and trying to get some really cool hot licks. But then we forget that 90% of the time that we're playing backup, we're playing rhythm guitar. And I've seen a lot of amazing players that can tear a guitar apart if they're doing lead, but cannot hold down the rhythm. So make sure that you are spending time with this. Actually play through the song. Think about what's going to be going on with the other instruments when they're taking breaks and things like that. Hopefully this video helped. Please like this page. Please subscribe. And I'll be sure to put up more videos for you. Thanks. Bye.